Welcome back, everybody, to Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki, and this is my podcast where I talk movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment. And today, it's episode 53, Wolfman. I hope you are all doing well. I hope this podcast finds you well. What a week it's been. Week one of unemployment down the hatch. I've actually been working on my first YouTube video, which is going to be up on the channel this week that you're listening to this. So I'm hoping Wednesday it'll be up my top 5 movies of 2024. A lot of fun learning Final Cut Pro and how to edit videos and add footage and stuff. Like a lot of useful skills. I don't know. It's fun to learn and do this in a visual format as well. I don't know if I'd ever take the podcast visual by myself. Maybe someday if it ever expands to be a massive corporate thing, but I don't know if that's so much work for me to do, recording this and stuff like that, but we'll see. Never say never. And of course it is Friday, January 17th when I am recording this, and we are 2 days away from the TikTok ban in the United States. They just announced this morning that it will be upheld on Sunday, so if there's any Americans listening, I'm sorry, you're gonna lose TikTok, but it has been undeniably hilarious, and I think it just goes to show how Americans love pettiness. Americans can be very petty. Everyone this week. So the reason TikTok's getting banned is because it's owned by a Chinese company and they see it as like foreign interference kind of, and it can spread Chinese propaganda. So what are Americans doing? Everyone is leaving TikTok and going to Red Note, which is literally the Chinese version of TikTok. And everyone's learning like Mandarin and Chinese and stuff on TikTok and making Chinese friends and pledging their allegiance to the Chinese Communist Party. It's just been so funny and just like really leaning into the bit and just spiting the American government. It's so funny. I can't believe all these boomers that are like, oh, we gotta ban TikTok because it's foreign interference. It's like Meta is propaganda and just toxic shit and AI going on. And how many Russian bots are there on Instagram and Facebook? Like, tell me that. Half the shit's AI anyways. I don't know. It just makes no sense. I think it's just boomers trying to get a hold on something that people can express themselves on. But I digress. All right, we got a lot to get to today. We have lots of news to talk about. I actually have an extra news story that just came out this morning that I wanted to tack on. Then, of course, we will get into Wolfman. But before that, timestamps below. If you want to just hear the non-spoiler part, you can do that and then skip to what else I watched, where I have some goodies to talk about there and a new video game I've been playing and a couple of things to plug. I just posted my Den of Thieves 2 review. All right, let's get into the news. So the first piece of news, Succession creator Jesse Armstrong's next project is an HBO film set during the financial crisis. So Armstrong is writing the untitled movie for HBO Films based on an original idea. So the film is said to revolve around 4 friends who meet up during the turmoil of an ongoing international financial crisis. He's still writing the script, but the movie is being fast-tracked with cast availabilities being checked for production start later this year. I'm very excited for that. I have said many times on this show that Succession is probably my favorite TV show of all time, I would say. Like, it's amazing. I've watched it 3 times over. It's so much fun. I hope maybe he brings some of the Succession cast back. That'd be interesting to work with them again. I mean, get Kieran Culkin in there for sure. He's amazing. He's about to win an Oscar, no doubt. So I'm pretty pumped for that. The fact that it's going to be starting this year. I think people always put together The Big Short and Succession because Adam McKay was also a producer on Succession, when it's actually they're very different creative forces, totally, I would say. So I think it's basically going to be like a Big Short Succession hybrid where it's about 4 friends living throughout a financial crisis. And I don't know, is it the 2008 financial crisis? Is it a new international financial crisis? I don't know, but it sounds very fun. He's done great work. I think the writing on Succession is just magic. Like, it's so funny, but it's just the drama is unbelievable and there's so many threads to pull on. It'll be very interesting to see him in more of a limited role with a film. I think he's done films before. I think he did a film, or was it a TV show called The Loop? That was a long time ago. I think like 2009 or something like that. But that's the only thing I know of him other than Succession. But Succession was like my thing for 3 or 4 years. Once my friend turned me on to it, I was like, dude, this is amazing. And I just binged it as fast as I could to catch up. And anytime anybody asks me what TV show should I watch, it's always Succession, Succession, Succession. I'm very interested. Is it going to be a group of young friends? Because then I think that does rule out most of the Succession cast, other than maybe Kieran Culkin. He could play a young guy, but Jeremy Strong, definitely not. Matthew McFadden, maybe Sarah Snook, but I doubt it. She's she's busy doing that show where she's playing all 26 characters on Broadway or in London. I'm not sure, but it sounds like a great concept. He's a great writer. He's won multiple Golden Globes and Emmys, so I'm trusting that it's going to be strong. Armstrong. The only thing I don't get is HBO film. So is it going to be straight to HBO Max, Crave if you're in Canada, or is it going to be a theatrical run? I hope it's a theatrical run because his stuff's dynamite and I want to watch it. But some more news talking about people returning, apart from Jesse Armstrong returning. Ferran Tahir is set to reprise his Iron Man role in Marvel's Vision series for Disney Plus, according to Deadline. So he's the villain that is working with Jeff Bridges' character in the first Iron Man movie. So it's been, almost 20 years since that movie. This is coming from Deadline. Ferran Tahir will appear in Paul Bettany's led series Vision Quest, a WandaVision spin-off series for Disney Plus. So he played Raza, as I said, the leader of the terrorist organization, the Ten Rings, who tried to kill Tony Stark in the very first Iron Man movie. What a random thing to bring back. Like, I thought he died in Iron Man. Am I imagining that wrong? No, he also the Vision Quest show. I forgot this is happening. I don't know why we're getting this. Marvel is just giving us the most random things from the MCU that I feel like no one cares. We just want X-Men. We just want Fantastic Four. Like, just focus on the mutants. Give us more Spider-Man. Stop giving us this random stuff. Like, oh dear God, the projections for Captain America 4 are not good right now. I think it's looking at an 80 to 90 million opening weekend, but it's not going to make a lot of money. It's looking like it's going to be the worst performing one. And of course, it's probably the most expensive movie ever made, considering they've reshot it about 4 times. Marvel, what's going on? We got to have a team talk and we got to reshape everything because it is rough out here. But details of Vision Quest are very scarce. The Marvel Vision spinoff has been in development at Disney Plus since 2022 and was picked up to series in May. It's believed that it's going to center on Vision as he tries to regain his memory and humanity after Thanos killed him in 2018's Avengers Infinity War and his return in 2021's WandaVision. WandaVision was good. I actually think that is a bit of an underrated show. It was a lot of fun, creative, every episode being a different theme. That was good. Maybe not the strongest finale, and the Evan Peters character, Matt Boner or whatever his name is, didn't fully work, but it was still a very fun show to watch week to week. That's when I felt like the Disney Plus shows were actually really good and rewarding. Week to week was like early Loki, early WandaVision. It was fun. Season 1 of What If. And this week we also got the trailer for Daredevil Born Again. Man, it looks okay. It looks like I'm mostly interested. There was someone pointed out online, there's this shot of his helmet flying off a building, and it's just very cheesy, ropey CGI that's like, oh, that's very clearly digitally inserted there, and it's not great. So I don't know. I really enjoyed the Netflix series. I could never finish the 3rd season, but I'm definitely going to give it a chance and watch Daredevil Born Again. I might not go back and watch the first Daredevil Netflix show. I don't know if I have the energy to go back and watch that fully through. I think it's coming out March 4th or March 5th. It looks okay for the most part. I like that Kingpin is kind of a regular dude now, but he's running for mayor. My hope is that plays into the Spider-Man movie, that it could possibly be a team up with Daredevil and just be a ground level crime thing. I don't want a multiverse story. Please, God, don't do it. But I mean, they're still writing the Spider-Man movies. But as for the Vision series, Vision Quest, whatever, I'll give it a chance, but I've been burned many a times by Disney and Marvel since Endgame. In another story, Brad Pitt's representation has responded after a catfished fan was scammed out of $850,000. The 53-year-old French woman named Anne previously revealed that she was conned after being convinced she was in a long-term relationship with the F1 star. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the scammer allegedly used AI technology to impersonate Pitt, sending personalized photos and messages to the woman. This is not funny. I'm not laughing. Anne was convinced to send nearly $1 million for a cancer treatment, with, quote, Pitt claiming he was unable to access his bank accounts due to the divorce from Angelina Jolie. The scammer even sent AI-generated images of Pitt in the hospital to convince Anne to send the money. Pitt's spokesman has released the following statement: "It's awful that scammers take advantage of fans' strong connections with celebrities, but this is an important reminder not to respond to unsolicited online outreach, especially from actors who have no social media presence." Anne reportedly eventually realized she had been conned when she saw photos of Pitt out of town with his girlfriend Ines de Ramon. That's terrifying. A 53-year-old woman getting scammed by AI. And I've someone on Twitter posted apparently what the photos were, and I don't know if those were joke photos or real photos, but they were hilariously terrible. And I was just keeping my fingers crossed. Please don't let that be the real images, because what a joke. A great follow-up from the Hollywood Reporter getting that statement from them, and a very good reminder that like unsolicited whatever things online from quote celebrities are never true. So if there's any older fans, don't trust things online that are telling you to send money or click the link because this foundation and this person needs your help. Use your best judgment. It's so much dead internet out there of just robots talking to each other. It's not going to be real. But let's get into some happy news here. Another story from the Hollywood Reporter. Conan O'Brien is set to receive the 2025 Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. That is so great. So the comedian, podcaster, and former late night host will be the 26th recipient of the award from the Kennedy Center. And they're actually doing something fun that they're going to air the ceremony live or stream it live. I can't say air. I just dated myself even though I'm only 24. It's going to be playing live on Netflix March 23rd. He's also hosting the Oscars this year on March 2nd, which there's rumors circling that apparently the Oscars might be canceled or might be moved. I don't know. I think whatever they think the best judgment is, if people want the Oscars in LA to remain, give it to them. It might, I don't know, brighten people's outlook, but at the same time, LA has seen unseen fire tragedies. So, but some of the other honorees have included Richard Pryor, Carl Reiner, Whoopi Goldberg, Tina Fey, Eddie Murphy, and his late night predecessors Jay Leno and David Letterman. Don't you dare say Jay Leno in that sentence. So, quote, for 4 decades, Conan O'Brien has brought his unique blend of the smart, silly, insightful, and hilarious into our homes, said Deborah F. Rutter, president of the Kennedy Center. From Saturday Night Live and The Simpsons, including the unbelievably funny Monorail episode, to late night podcasts and all things Team Coco, Conan is a master of invention and reinvention, consistently pushing the envelope in search of new comedic heights. I look forward to honoring his immense legacy and enduring impact. That's going to be so much fun. And Conan said, I am honored to be the first winner of the Mark Twain Prize, recognized not for humor, but for my work as a riverboat pilot. Oh my God, that's extremely on brand from Conan there, but that's going to be really cool. I mean, Conan's been in the biz forever. He's been 30 years doing late night plus entertainment. You know, he's worked on The Simpsons, worked on Saturday Night Live. One of my favorite episodes of The Simpsons is the Monorail episode. If you've never seen it, I urge you to go watch it because it is so funny. All right, well, last week it was made official that Courtney Cox is returning for Scream 7, a movie that is just looking dead in the water on arrival. I don't even know what to make of this franchise anymore. They're such pathetic losers. Joel McHale is set to join Scream 7 as Sidney Prescott's husband. So that was originally, according to theories online, Detective Mark Kincaid, played by Patrick Dempsey of Scream 3, was allegedly going to be Sidney Prescott's husband. Well, Joel McHale, he's joined the cast. Scream 7 is currently in production in Atlanta. The cast includes Courtney Cox, Mason Gooding, Isabella May, Celeste O'Connor, Asa German, McKenna Grace, Sam Reckner, and Anna Camp. While May is playing daughter of Prescott, last seen in 2022's Scream reboot. Further character details for new additions are under wraps, as is the plot for the latest installment in the meta horror franchise. Look, I loved the last 2 Scream movies. I think they were fun. They were doing something new. I just don't know after how they treated Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega that I want to do this series anymore. People are not going to be happy with this, and I'll probably review it for the show, but like, I don't know. It did feel like the aspects of the last 2 movies that were really letting everything down were kind of the older legacy characters being involved. I actually enjoyed the new stuff more. Like the New York one was actually fun. Got into like some spiritual vibes in there. That was kind of enjoyable, but I don't know. I just think the good talent's gone, and the ones that are joining clearly had no issues with, you know, they got to get a paycheck and they don't really care about their co-stars getting fired, I suppose, but whatever. That's the business, and they're ruthless, but good for Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega for going on to better things. All right, final story that literally came out 4 hours ago, and I was pumping air. Super happy for this. Variety is reporting that Greta Gerwig's Narnia films for Netflix are getting IMAX releases. Netflix is breaking. So Brent Lang from Variety reported this morning, Greta Gerwig has leveraged her Barbie star power to convince Netflix to give her the big, broad theatrical release she wanted for Narnia. After months of negotiations, IMAX announced that Narnia will be released exclusively on its screens worldwide for 2 weeks in advance of the film's debut on Netflix. That's still not enough. That's so stupid. 2 weeks? Are you kidding me? Just, oh my God, rework the Netflix and streaming models to do exclusively streaming after like 2 months. I hate this. Oh, well, I'm just going to wait 2 weeks to watch it on streaming. No, you can make so much more money by just putting putting it in theaters and getting something that people can be excited for, you dickheads. Oh my god, this is such a bummer. But the IMAX launch, as Variety says, is a rarity for the streamer, which does grant limited Oscar qualifying theatrical runs for its hopefuls like Amelia Perez and Maria. Dear God, saying Amelia Perez out loud, I almost just cried a little. But it mostly prefers its movies, Netflix, to just go straight to streaming. There have been exceptions in 2022 for Netflix, like Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery, which hopefully Wake Up Dead Man they're going to put in theaters exclusively before Netflix, because that's going to be, I think that could make a lot of money. People love Knives Out, and I think people are looking forward to it. So throw it in theaters for a while, guys. Let's look forward to it. Anyways, that's some hopeful news to finish it on. I hope we get some restructuring of the theater system model and enough of this straight to streaming nonsense. You're starving the industry of money and opportunity, and you're starving the theaters of good movies to show. But I think that's going to do it for the news this week. As I said before, timestamps below. If you want to avoid spoilers, just listen to the non-spoiler section. I keep it super vague. Don't worry, lots to talk about with Wolfman, but without further ado, let's get into it. Ow, ow! Wolfman is a 2025 horror fantasy coming in at an hour and 43 minutes. Extremely brief movie. And here we go. This is our first 2025 film release of the year that we're reviewing for the show. Currently holding 6 out of 10 on IMDb, 56% on Rotten Tomatoes, 2.7 average rating on Letterboxd, with the mode being 3 stars. So not great. I would say quite mixed reviews all around. The film is directed by Lee Winnell and adapted from The Wolfman, distributed by Universal Pictures, produced by Ryan Gosling and Jason Blum. I believe Ryan Gosling was originally supposed to star in this or something like that, and had a $25 million budget, and currently at the box office not doing great with like $1.4 million, I believe. Written by Lee Winnell, as I said, but with his wife Corbett Tuck. The synopsis: with his marriage fraying, Blake persuades his wife Charlotte to take a break from the city and visit his remote childhood home in rural Oregon. As they arrive at the farmhouse in the dead of the night, they're attacked by an unseen animal and barricade themselves inside the home as the creature prowls the perimeter. But as the night stretches on, Blake begins to behave strangely, transforming into something unrecognizable. The film stars Christopher Abbott as Blake Lovell, Julia Garner from Ozark fame as Charlotte Lovell, Matilda Firth as Ginger Lovell, Sam Jaeger as Grady Lovell, also has Ben Prendergast, Benedict Hardy as Derek, and Zach Chandler as young Blake. Alright, well, Wolfman, initial thoughts. Here we go, guys. First 2025 movie, and oh boy, we are not starting the show off well. I would say meh. Definitely a January movie, for sure. This is a January release. There's so much in this movie, but also nothing at the same time. I don't know how that makes any sense. I felt like there was so much, but nothing. More like Bald Man, I guess. I don't know. If you've seen the online pictures of the full-on Wolfman, we'll talk about the design in a bit, but let's start with the performances. As always, like, it's a lukewarm movie, but I do think, there's some stuff in here that I thought was okay. Performances: Christopher Abbott as Blake Lovell. I feel like he's really doing the best he can with the material. His human stuff actually is very well acted. Like, I did find the human element quite interesting in this story. Sadly, that's the more interesting stuff in a Wolfman movie, is the human element. Julia Garner as Charlotte Lovell. It was really cool seeing her outside of Ozark. I've actually never watched her in anything outside of Ozark. She's going to be playing the Silver Surfer. It was nice to see her without the crazy accent she has in Ozark, and her being like relatively calm a lot of the time. It's a little bit of a shock, like, oh, she's normal in this. Her character is sort of written out as a cold villain and a bad parent, works too hard. She's the villain of every situation. She's kind of written in a really strange way. Like, I just felt bad for her the whole time. I was like, man, why is she the bad guy here when her husband doesn't even have a job? But anyways, she's a workaholic and she's providing for the family, so it's all very interesting. Matilda Firth as Ginger Lovell, their daughter, starts very well, but just gets a little corny and quite annoying over the course of the movie. I wish they didn't baby her so much. At the start of the movie, she has like a lot of funny dialogue, and she's a very mature kid. Like, she's literally a child, but has a lot of maturity in all of their discussions, and is kind of the highlight at the start, tying the family dynamics together. As the movie goes on, she just gets more and more annoying and childish and like, mommy and daddy, and it's de-aging, and it doesn't make any sense. It feels like the wheels just come off the movie so quickly, and our characters movies just get regressively interesting, just less and less fun and less to hold on to, and by the end you're just waiting for this to be over. But okay, it is important to say he's not a werewolf. I saw some reviews online that were like, oh, a cool werewolf movie. He's not a werewolf. It's not a full moon that turns him into this. He is a wolf man. He's always like that. There's these wolf people out 24/7, an important distinction in my opinion. But let's start with the directing. Leigh Whannell, he made the Invisible Man movie a few years back. I want to say like 2018, 2017, something like that. I really liked that movie. I thought it was a fun invention with like modern technology, and it had Elizabeth, what's her name? Elizabeth Banks? No, that can't be right. From Mad Men, the lady from Mad Men and Handmaid's Tale. I thought that movie was great and just a really fun reinvigoration into this dark universe that they were setting up, remember, with the Mummy and Tom Cruise. But oh man, this one's a dud compared to The Invisible Man. The Invisible Man did a really great job of making the story applicable to our times, whereas this film, I'm not sure it's really applicable to our times. It is, but with very low effort, whereas I thought it was fun making the Invisible Man a tech guy and her ex-husband, and everyone thinks she's going crazy, but it's just her husband has invented this cool technology. And this one doesn't really feel like there's anything refreshing about this. It's much more of just a very straightforward adaptation to our time, but with very little effort and not a lot of reinvention. There's just not a creative vision for this story. It's just not very well directed. Definitely did much better directing work on The Invisible Man with some really fun sequences, but that felt so much more fresh and inventive than this. This feels like it lacks a real creative voice behind it. It didn't feel like there was a Leigh Whannell vision behind this. It kind of felt like he was on cruise control for this movie. And the lighting as well. Whoever lit this movie deserves jail time, because oh my dear God, there's some nighttime scenes where you cannot see a single thing. It was brutal. And there are some sequences, to its credit, on purpose. You're not meant to see a character that's in the dark. But then there's times where people are walking through the house at night and I'm in an IMAX screen and I can't see anything, and it's so frustrating. If I'm gonna pay $13 for a ticket, I want the movie to be watchable. And actually, let's talk about the IMAX, because you would think expanded ratio, better sound. I thought the sound was actually okay in this film, and the surround sound elements did work at times, but visually, even in IMAX, this movie looked so boring and visually just depressing and gray. Nothing supremely exciting about it. For a Wolfman film, it's just, you would want it to be a lot more fresh and trying to really go for it and feel animalistic, when it just kind of feels like a classic, I don't know, straight to streaming monster escape movie. There's nothing uniquely visual about this, and IMAX did not improve this at all. So if you're debating going to see it in IMAX or standard, if you're gonna go see it, I would just go standard. Save your money. You're already spending money on a movie that I don't even know if I'll recommend, but there are maybe one or two sequences that I was like, okay, that was kind of visually fun. And there are these times, this isn't a spoiler, but it does switch visually to the perspective of the Wolfman and how he sees things, because he has like this night vision. And I thought that didn't really work for me. It does like a weird glaze over with bright blue and neon colors, and I don't know. But let's get into the pacing of the film and the structure a little bit more. Pacing wise, oh man, brutal. The first 30 to 40 minutes, I was actually very interested. It's when they're in the city at the start of the film, and you know, they got to do the classic, set up the emotional stakes before we get into the monster stuff. Who is this family? What's the dynamic? And I actually thought, okay, this is all kind of interesting. And we also get like the origin story of the dad in this family, played by Christopher Abbott, right? And his father's relationship with him, because that's why they're going back to this Oregon home. It's where his father lives. So you kind of get like the groundwork of the family dynamics. And I kind of liked all that. It opens with a very interesting hunting sequence with him and his father. Then it flashes 30 years and we're in the present day. I'm not really giving anything away here because most of it's shown. Honestly, most of this movie is shown in the trailer. Like, I was very surprised. Speaking of trailers, like, that are giving everything away, this movie, but also The Companion, the new Jack Quaid movie that's coming out later this month, I was shocked how all of the twists of the film are kind of in the movie or in the trailer. What's up with that? It looks entertaining and I'm excited for it, but I know the whole movie's structure now, I guess. But this movie as well, like, I watched the trailer, I think yesterday morning, just to kind of freshen myself of like, wait, who's in this again? And then I watched it, I was like, oh, did I just see the whole movie? And literally walking out of the theater, I was like, well, nothing unexpected in this. But yeah, first 30 to 40 minutes are the most interesting part of the movie. And then when the actual wolf stuff begins in this, it feels very sparsely entertaining. It sort of abandons any story for, hey, look, there's a wolf thing, and we kind of lose any of our emotional centering or grounding in this film. The wheels come off, as I said. Like, it really, eventually, you can feel such a tonal shift and just just this whole flip of like, all right, time to do a horror movie now, instead of like emotionally slow burning this thriller type thing. It just very quickly switches to studio mindset. And like I said, the wolf part's actually not that interesting. It's very rarely exciting or thrilling, and there's never a moment in the film to give our characters a moment to breathe and really reap what you sowed in the first 30 to 40 minutes. I think there's major groundwork put in at the start of the film of like, okay, there's some emotional stakes to this film, and we really get to know our characters at the start. So this could be really great. I think there is potential there. And then the rest of the movie kind of just abandons that. And it's like, you don't really care that much. And it's like, that's the most interesting stuff. I don't care about the wolf at this point. The pacing's very confusing in this. And you just know, your movie's in trouble when the horror element is the least interesting part. And like, having said that, I think the writing was good with the family, but the chemistry in our leads, not great. I think Julia Garner and Christopher Abbott don't really have any chemistry in this film. I think first 30 minutes, you're like, okay, maybe there's something here. And then the rest of the movie, it's just so devoid of any chemistry in any of our family members, especially, actually, you know what? Matilda Firth, like I said, talking about the performances, I think the start of the movie, she really shines and she has a lot of room to be funny and kind of explore this child trying to break tension between their parents. And the tension between the parents works really well with the child. But then as soon as we get to that cabin, it's like death knocking on the door. There's just nothing fun about the rest of the movie. And the heart of the movie just slowly becomes more cheesy and inauthentic. Like, everything feels very touchy and sensitive and cagey at the start. Like, oh man, this family's really off their rockers and not doing well. And it seems like there's a lot of emotional fragility here and things have been quite bad for a while. And then by the end of the movie, they're just like, I don't know, very quickly moving past things and forgiving things, or more forgetting things than forgiving things, I would say. It's this whole suspension of their lives for the sake of this story. And I guess I've kind of alluded to it, but look, this is a horror movie. Is it scary? Not at all. It doesn't have a single inventive moment building tension. Maybe one scene where I was like, okay, there's something here, and that involves someone hiding in the dark. I was like, all right, this is kind of entertaining. Other than that, I was like, what's up with this wolf story? I feel like we've just started a whole other movie. It's so strange how this is all cut together, and I don't really understand there's not really a lot of mesh going between the scenes. Everything is kind of just like a collection of underdeveloped moments, and I think it's just not very good writing. And a lot of the dialogue feels very frozen and stiff after the first 40 minutes. Like, I feel like they got off to such a good start, and then the studio's like, okay, you're putting it off too long. We don't care about the humans. The fans are gonna want the wolf stuff. And I don't know, maybe some studio intervention, considering how well Lee Winnell did with The Invisible Man. You would think maybe they would give him that trust to just do your own thing with Wolfman, but it's just, I think this is a very clear case of a director slash writer going on cruise control. Maybe their first idea was their best idea, or they just couldn't connect to the source material after. Something like that. I don't know. It's very just stiff and kind of lukewarm the entire film. And they also do something in horror movies that I really hate that takes away the scariness of it, of just constantly avoiding showing us the thing. And when we finally do get to see it, it just doesn't feel worth it. Like, I think there's one moment when they first get to the cabin that we get a little glimpse, and I was like, oh, I like that, like a quick cut to it. But then they try to really withhold it, and they just rely on the sounds to scare you. And I don't know if that's a budget thing or what it was, because, you know, $25 million movie, right? That's not crazy. That's a pretty decent budget for what this is. But it just feels like they weren't really working with shadows or working with a visual tension and stuff like that. It was a lot of surround sound, and I don't think that's going to translate well to watching this film at home when you think about it. And there is something to be said about withholding what's scary in the film and really teasing it out. Like, I think Longlegs did a pretty good job of hiding Longlegs a lot of the time, and that was kind of fun, teasing it out to be like, Jesus Christ, what is this thing that's stalking her, Lee Harker? I'm so curious, what is this thing? And then when you finally see him, after only seeing him at the start of the movie, it's terrifying. Versus this, I was like, okay, come on, if the story's not going to be great and there's not any emotional tension because you've abandoned it, at least just show me the good stuff. I want to see a werewolf or a wolf man. I guess it's not even a werewolf, it's a wolf man. It's just, it's very strange what the strategy of this film was, and it just feels all a little bit misguided, a little bit underbaked. The effects themselves, like, look, credit to them because the makeup is quite good. There is some good use of prosthetics here, but it's more bald man than wolf man. He's not extremely hairy, and I can't remember, I think you get a glimpse of him. They do a good thing of slowly progressing the husband, Christopher Abbott, rabbit into being the Wolfman, like fully formed. I really like the slow progression scene to scene of him turning more and more into the wolf. That's good. I'll give the movie credit for that. But otherwise, like, I don't know, he's kind of a creepy bald looking thing, like the alien Romulus monster at the end. He kind of almost looks like that rather than a Wolfman. But it's just the effects are kind of low effort, but still good looking, but just feel not necessary for this movie. I feel like just show us a big hairy guy standing on his back legs and he's 6 feet tall, like Prisoner of Azkaban. That's what I want to see. If I'm going to see Wolfman, I want it to be a big hairy dude. And you know, you watch all these horror movies and they're meant to be an allegory. They're meant to be a metaphor for something going on in life. And I think there's a lot of themes here with parenting, family, and emotional scars and trauma, but it never really feels like it's a good one-to-one match, or they're never really fully swinging. And it's all a little bit underbaked, as I said. Like, I feel like there's some good foundations laid in the first 40 minutes of what our parents' legacy is with us and stuff like that. But then by the end of the movie, did we fully explore that? Or wait, was this appropriate for a Wolfman film? I feel like there was another film or another horror movie or another metaphor that could have been used here. And I don't know, in spoilers, I'll get into another take that someone had of what they think the allegory is of this film or how you can read this film. But for me, I thought, okay, it's an interesting read, but they don't fully lean into it. But it's also a film that lacks any closure or never really get answers for anything. The ending is very lackluster. And as I said, an hour and 43 minutes, look, you can make a great fleshed out film in an hour and 43 minutes, but this movie feels very empty for a lot of it. It feels very hollow. The writing is very just nothing happening, and we're just kind of walking around this cabin waiting for Wolfman to show up and our husband to slowly transform. And it's just, like I said, a lot is in this movie, but there's not a lot to it. Overall, it's pretty lackluster. It's definitely a January horror movie. I don't think it's anything to race to the theaters to watch. If it shows up on streaming, maybe check it out if you're bored. But otherwise, I didn't find it that fascinating. But let's read some Letterboxd reviews, shall we? 1.5 stars from Sydney. Woof. Matt Lynch gave it 3.5 stars, says, does an awful lot with relatively little. I guess so. I don't know. If you evaluate the script versus what actually you can get out of the movie, I guess the cast members are doing a lot with very little material to work from. So fair enough. Chris Parker gave it 3 stars and says, delivers on some grotesque body horror and chilling imagery of seeing your loved one turn monster. I enjoy the unique spin on a werewolf, but I'm walking out a little underwhelmed. The story feels flat with its themes half-baked. A collection of cool scenes with no closure. Yeah, it's more of a collection of things rather than an overall arc is a very good way to put it. 3 stars from Tim Tam Titus, who said, I mean, this guy is great, but he's no Taylor Lautner. Yeah, Twilight fans, you might get something out of this, but at the same time, he's no Taylor Lautner. He's no Jacob. 2.5 stars from Danine, who said, yeah, had a bad night like this once. And finally, we'll end with 2 stars from Marmar, who actually I follow. They said, oh, you can just smell the stench of, quote, this was released in January, end quote, all over it. Yep, the definition of a January release. Overall, it's a pretty lackluster January horror movie. I don't think it's anything special or particularly fun. Like, it's not a fun movie. Sometimes you watch a bad movie or a lower in quality movie, I will say, like A Den of Thieves 2, Parentera, and I was like, that was fun. I can acknowledge its flaws, but I still really enjoyed it. Or a Wicked, which I think is a poorly made movie and has a lot going against it, but it has some phenomenal performances that are saving it. Or A Complete Unknown, for me, what was a pretty okay movie and pretty average standard movie, but again, the performances are elevating it. You can still take things out of those movies that you can enjoy, whereas Wolfman, I don't think there's tons you're going to take out of this. It's overall pretty lackluster. It's slow. It's not a fun time at the movies. It's not even like a fun, stupid popcorn movie. It's a bit of a waste of time, and it's a 2 out of 5 stars for me, but let's get into some spoilers for Wolfman. All right, spoilers for Wolfman. As I said, this film is all about generational trauma and male rage. Is that what this story can be read? So our main character, he grows up, and as I said, the start of the movie is him going hunting with his father, who I'm not sure what's his dad's deal. He has this flag on his wall in the basement, and I was wondering what other people made of that. It's the red flag with like the gun and crossbows or snakes or something. I was like, wait, is he a right-wing dude? Or I think he's a U.S. Marine, right? Because of his tattoo. So I don't know. He is a little bit nuts though. though, and they're off the grid, and he's got his ham radio and communicating, and he's a little bit kooky and conspiracy theory a little bit, and he's very hard on his son. And I suppose they just lost his wife / the Christopher Abbott's mother, so that's why. And one thing that really worked at the start of the movie was he is so protective of his son, because you can lose someone you love very quickly. And the dad makes a good point, like, you never know how long you have with someone in this life, so you should cherish every moment and enjoy every second, because it can be gone like that. And I was like, all right, we got some emotional groundwork going on here. So is this movie about like helicopter parents and being overprotective? But then I really liked the 30-year flash forward that he is kind of Christopher Abbott. What's his name in the film? I keep calling him Christopher Abbott. Blake. He seems like a very good dad, and I like that he's course correcting and becoming a good father, but he does have his moments where he kind of snaps a little bit. Like his daughter's climbing something in the city and she gets yelled at after she jumps down, and then he loses it on her, being like, why the hell won't you listen to me? God damn it. Dude, come on. You're in the middle of the street here. But then you can see him quickly snap out of it, and it's like, okay, so this is a movie about not becoming our parents. Got it. Cut the check the gate, whatever, all that good stuff. And then it kind of turns also into like a divorce type movie with the family fracturing. I thought that's a good addition. I think him and Julia Garner fighting at the start of the movie, I thought that was really well done, of him being like, hey, can you take that in the other room? And she's very clearly a workaholic. He's not working, and he says, oh yeah, I'm a busy guy, but like, what's he doing? I don't know. He just went shopping into the museum with his daughter that day. But you know, one unemployed bro can recognize another unemployed bro, and it just feels like this is a very healthy representation of a son not trying to become his father. Like, he gets the papers and it says his father has been declared deceased, which immediately I was like, oh, that's a red flag. He's been declared. They've officially declared he's dead, so they don't know he's dead, and they haven't found a body. So that's when I immediately knew what the big twist was going to be, which we'll get to. I like that when his daughter asked, are you sad? He just said yes. And that he said he regrets that he maybe never got to bond with his father or get back in touch. I actually thought, damn, Lee Winnell, like, you're putting in some groundwork here, and this could be pretty great. Like, it's a very strong start. And as I said in non-spoilers, the wheels come off when the wolf gets involved. This could have been a very good family drama, rediscovering parenthood and who your dad was and all of his issues and stuff. But it feels like a good emotional story stuck inside of a franchise reboot or something like that. So yeah, his dad's a Marine. He's kind of a little bit low-key crazy, generational trauma. Although I will say that Reese Feldman had an interesting review that I want to pull up. I don't know. He didn't give it a star rating because I get it. He's involved in these like press screenings and junkets now, so maybe he doesn't want to give it a bad review. But he said, I am a sucker for a werewolf movie. It's not a werewolf. And one that I read as an allegory for living with a loved one who suffers from dementia. Definitely makes it hit harder. Interesting read. The wolf being, you know, someone that doesn't understand you anymore. They're not sure what's going on and they're acting like a whole other being. That's a very interesting read of seeing it as dementia. I don't know how I read the whole wolf aspect. Yeah, I mean, is dementia a disease? Because the setup in this film is that it's a disease that's turning these people. So fascinating. That's a really good read on it. And I guess I haven't really thought about like what the representation or what the wolf aspect is supposed to mean. Is it male rage? I don't think so. But also I think it is a little bit PTSD. It's a little bit bad parenting and emotional scars that we pass down to our children. But anyways, at the start of the film, I do have a question. Were they like nearing divorce or are they nearing splitting up? I didn't really realize until reading the synopsis, like, oh, okay, they're supposed to be on the ropes and it looks like things are about to fall apart. They have one scene where he visits her outside of her work, right? And I thought, okay, it's a good setup to get her to go to the cabin, but it's not like a vacation. It's kind of funny that the synopsis said like, oh, they take a break at the cabin. It's like, this is not a cabin. They're going to get his dead father and empty his house out. And I've never actually thought about how do werewolves get turned into a werewolf? And again, he's not a werewolf. He's a wolf man, but I guess it's just through transfer of blood or like scratching or biting. It's like a vampire. If they bite you, you become a vampire. So interesting there because he does get scratched and his initially is like seems okay, but then he just starts bleeding and his skin starts bubbling and he looks a little bit swollen, and it's good prosthetics kind of evolving the process slowly for the viewer. There was one funny part, and now that I'm reading it as a story about like dementia, aging, and losing ourselves, it's less funny to me, but in the theater I laughed when he's standing there and he's slowly starting to turn and his wife can't understand him, he can't understand her, and then he just stands there and pisses himself and he's standing in a puddle of pee. I was like, that was certainly something. And I mean, all four people in my screening laughed. You know, that was a bit of a goofy moment that I don't think was played for comedy, but it was like, oh wow, there were four people in my screening. This is not going to do well financially, I don't think. Getting back to the story, at the start of the movie, like I've said many times, they're establishing those kind of foundations, the emotional foundations, and him and his daughter keep on repeating this thing throughout the movie. I think they used it 5 or 6 times, and it was so infuriating after the second time, where he's like, oh, what's your job? And she's like, I'm a mind reader. And he says, what am I thinking right now? And, you know, she touches his forehead and says, I love my little girl. And they repeat that 5 or 6 times throughout the movies, and every time it becomes more and more annoying until at the end of the movie, when they shoot him, she touches his head, and it's like, oh, she's a mind reader again. It's like, okay, but we've seen it 20 times. I like, and it's good in movies when there's an emotional connection thing that you can recognize the beast and make it humane. They just overdid it and overwrote this movie so much. Like, it's such an underbaked plot with such repetitive moments, which, yeah, I guess let's talk about the ending, because they kill him. There's no, I don't know, and I think that's why the ending's a little bit lackluster, that they just have to kill their husband or the dad. I was like, wait, you can't like chain him up and take him to a city and a scientist or something like that, and no doctors can be involved. It's just about killing him and escaping. I thought that was a little bit depressing. If it is like an allegory for, I don't know, taking our family's scars and our bad parenting habits, or a dementia, or whatever this is, like, what are we supposed to kill our family members then, or we have to let them die? I don't know how to read that ending, and I just think that just kind of shows how the 1-to-1 ratio of the metaphor doesn't really fit the story some of the time. So also, his dad was the werewolf. That's the big twist, which I wasn't sure if the werewolf, I was trying to decipher the whole time. Is the werewolf his dad, or is it the guy that took them to the cabin at the start who was scratched and eaten as well, and now he has to fight off the neighbor? But no, it is his dad, which makes sense, because the start of the movie, there's the hiker, and that's the last time we see his dad, as he's going to go search after the hiker that turned into the werewolf. So I'm assuming he recently found him. That's when he turned, obviously. I don't know. They don't really go into it that much. A little bit heartbreaking. I thought that moment worked a little bit well, when he's half transformed and then he kills his father. He slits his throat, and that's only when he realizes that it's his dad. I thought that actually worked. I don't know. Just like, it's very generic and just low effort. Again, it just feels like an adaptation that it was just write it on paper, write a basic script, and let's get it out there. And hopefully people are fine with a lackluster, non-inventive, very let the wheels fall off adaptation. Wolfman is really nothing special. Fun to see a horror movie in theaters. I can't remember the last horror movie I actually saw. Geez, maybe it was Longlegs? I don't know. It's been a while since I saw a horror movie, but I'm excited. Oh no, Heretic. That was the last one, which was really good. I enjoyed Heretic a lot, and Longlegs was amazing. But yeah, I think I'm going to wrap up Wolfman there so we can get into what else I watched this week. But Wolfman, 2 out of 5 stars. A lot of funny reviews about it, more like Bald Man and stuff like that. I said in my Letterboxd review that he looks like a testicle, because he does. But let's get into what else I watched. All right, well, despite being unemployed, a little bit of less to talk about in what else I watched movie-wise. I watched a lot of TV this week, and I played a new video game, but also I was learning Final Cut Pro this week, because I'm going to start doing the podcast YouTube stuff in Final Cut Pro, and I'm making a YouTube video. My goal is 1 YouTube video per month. I think it's fun to do, and I really enjoy it, or I might make some shorter videos as well that I can do in an afternoon, but that's been fun. So what else I watched this week? Books-wise, I'm actually starting a Batman and Superman comic book that is going to be really fun. I have 6 of them in my collection, so you can look forward to the weekly comic readings. But let's actually start with the video games. I started Marvel Rivals last night. I got home from the movies and I was like, oh, it's a free game. I downloaded it. I tried it out. I played the tutorial as the Punisher and then Iron Man. I gotta say, it's pretty fun. I think the movement is a little bit slow, but like first impressions after an hour of playing, I enjoyed it. For a free game on PS5, it's pretty good value for what you're getting. There's tons of characters in it, and I like that you can play as them all. Pretty much at the start when you begin, you can play as whoever you want online. I played a couple of online games. My team won both times. Not gonna flex. I don't know if you're a Marvel fan and you have a PlayStation. I don't know if it's on Xbox, but I know it's on PC, so it's kind of worth it for a free game. I love free games, and like Fortnite. I've been playing Fortnite a lot this week, believe it or not, with my friends and my brother. Lots of dubs, and it's a good time. I always love Fortnite, and they've gone back to the OG maps, so yeah, I might start doing more video game stuff for you guys as well, because I love video games. I've gamed my entire life. So Marvel Rivals, it's 2 thumbs up for me. I know it's not for everyone. Some people say it's a little bit boring, but I would see why you think that. The movement can be a little slow. But let's get into the one movie I watched this week, and then we're going to finish with TV shows because we got lots to talk about. But Mission Impossible 1996, the OG first movie with Tom Cruise, Mission Impossible. Showed it to my girlfriend. She had never fully watched it as an adult, so we watched it. I loved it. Probably my like 10th or 20th time seeing it. I swear to God, as a kid, the Mission Impossible movies were always on CBC, Canadian Broadcast Corporation. I distinctly remember the third one constantly being on TV, but we watched the first one. It's so great. It's a classic. It's a good plot. It's very clear what's going on the whole time, and my girlfriend, within the first 5 minutes, predicted the big twist. And you know what? Tom Cruise is doing a lot of fun stuff in that. It's a great heist, espionage, spy movie. The dropping down in the CIA sequence and getting the knock list off of the computer, I will never get tired of that sequence. I sweat. I get tense every time I watch it. There's so much going on, and when the guy's that's also a traitor and up and holding his rope with the rat climbing on him and stuff, oh my God, there's just such good tension, and the cutting of music in that scene works really well. It's Brian De Palma, and then the second one is John Cho. Who did the second one? John Woo did the second one in 2000, so 4 years later. We are going to watch that this weekend. A totally different movie from the others, but we'll talk about that next week. But that's it for movies I watched. I gave it 4 stars. I think it is so solid. I love all the Bible stuff and like the internet retro tech of having to search up internet databases and stuff like that. That's so fun, and it's fun to see how much the series has really evolved. Once again, last night I saw the trailer in IMAX for The Final Reckoning. So great. Like, holy moly, I cannot wait for that movie. Especially seeing the trailer in IMAX, the ratio, I got goosebumps. It looks so good on that massive screen. I'm gonna be there day one. Most Mission Impossible movies do financially pretty well. I think people give them a lot of shit because Tom Cruise and the film paid everyone through COVID. The budgets are gonna balloon, and they've been delayed like crazy the last 2 movies. So of course they're not gonna make their money back, but still, they're great movies. I think Mission Impossible, like I said in my top 5 most anticipated movies video, which actually is out now on the socials, go check that out. That was really fun to make. I said the Mission Impossible movies are probably my favorite running franchise with a continuing story from movie to movie. I think like you don't count James Bond or Superman or Batman as a franchise. Those are IPs versus Mission Impossible. There's a continuing story film to film. Mission Impossible is probably my favorite one because they just keep upping their game every movie. I remember being 12 years old when Ghost Protocol came out, and my mind was blown. I saw it multiple times in theaters with each of my family members, and I loved it so much. Like the Dubai stuff, climbing the tower, the Burj Khalifa was insane, just mind-blowing. Rogue Nation, really good. I think it's just as fun. Funny story, when my girlfriend was seeing that, during the sequence when Tom Cruise is doing the underwater diving thing, the power went out at the theater, so they didn't get to finish the movie, so everyone had to leave. They got coupons and nobody went back, so I think she's only seen half of that movie and never finished it. But I like Rogue Nation a lot. Fallout, amazing, one of the best action movies ever probably. And then Dead Reckoning Part 1 I thought is a lot of fun as well. Maybe not as good as Fallout, but I still think a very strong action movie. And I will always have a soft spot for Mission Impossible 3. J.J. Abrams did wonders with the franchise. Philip Seymour Hoffman is the best villain of the series. Okay, what I am going to watch this week, I said I was going to see One of Them Days last night after Wolfman, but it wasn't starting until 2 hours until Wolfman ended, so I was like, I can't wait around 2 hours, and my phone was very low battery, my hands were dry, and I wanted to moisturize. I know that sounds pathetic. So next week, I swear, I promise, in the What Else I Watched section of the show, we are going to have Mission Impossible 2 for sure, because I'm going to watch that this weekend. Tuesday, I'm seeing Flow and One of Them Days. I'm also seeing Nickel Boys next week. Then I'm hoping to squeeze in The Last Showgirl, but I might have to wait for my girlfriend to see that. And September 5th or September 5. I can't remember what they're calling it. September 5. That's what I'm seeing next week. So lots of stuff to come. We'll have lots to talk about, but let's get into TV shows. All right, let's start with Survivor Cook Island, season 13. We watched episodes 4 to 6. A fun few episodes, and it's so fun to see how different the rewards are. They just did a double elimination episode where even the winning tribe had to go to tribal council, but after they voted someone out, they got to sit in the jury box and have a meal. But what was very fascinating to see was the invention of the split vote, which was invented by Cowboy. Now, the idea of a split vote for non-Survivor fans, I don't know, is you have the majority of the votes. You can easily outvote the other position. So say there's 8 people in the tribe, 2 people are going to vote for one person, and you want to get one of those 2 people out. So what do? If you think one of them has an immunity idol that makes them safe and none of their votes will count, what you do is the 6 of you voting against the 2, split your votes. You can do 4 and 2, or you can do 3 and 3. Usually you want to do 3 and 3. So ideally you put 3 on the person with the idol and then 3 on the person without the idol. If the person plays their idol, they're safe and the other person with 3 votes goes home, right? If they don't have an idol, then it's 3 and 3. it's a tie, you re-vote and you pick the person as a group that you want to go home. So a very good idea, and Cowboy comes up with it. Unfortunately, it actually doesn't work and he goes home. They called it Operation Voodoo, I think. A very interesting idea, and it's fun to see like old school Survivor players coming up with ideas that are literally used every episode now. Like, you cannot watch an episode of Survivor without a split vote or the idea of flushing an idol. Like, that's just, it's very fun to watch the old school games come together. All right, let's get into Abbott Elementary. Season 4, episode 9, the It's Always Sunny crossover. What a fun crossover that was. I feel like we don't get tons of fun comedy crossovers anymore, but that was delightful. Here's my only nitpick before I get into everything I loved about it. The lack of Dennis Reynolds in the show was really weird. I don't know why they felt like they couldn't fit him in. He, of the group, as many people have pointed out on Twitter, he's the best with kids. Why would you not have him in the episode? Remember the water park episode of It's Always Sunny? He's literally with a little girl all day, just walking around, and they're just like having fun together, and he's being kind of a cool parent. Versus they write him out of this show because he's like, oh, I know how consent works with cameras and stuff, which is a funny joke, but I wanted to see Glenn Howerton on Abbott Elementary. But otherwise, very fun episode. I loved the Frank's involvement with the janitor, and they're trying to trap raccoons. It was very peak Frank Reynolds, Ronald McDonald / Mac. I liked his involvement of being like the principal's underling and having to just do everything for them, trying to get their community service hours reduced. Dee is just hitting on the teacher next door who's dating Quinta Brunson's character, I think. I didn't really understand their dynamic. I think they're dating. She said that's my boyfriend. So I liked her involvement of just Dee being kind of a bit of a pervert. The best storyline of all of the episode, Charlie learning to read. That was so wholesome, and seeing all of the teachers band together and just, you know, put a warm hand on Charlie's shoulder and teach him how to read was so heartwarming. And seeing Mac's reaction to Charlie reading, where he actually does seem a little bit proud for a moment and he's like smiling and happy. It was just very funny to see. But I loved the initial reaction of all of the Abbott cast seeing Charlie reading and being like, holy dear God, this man is insanely bad at reading and he's illiterate. I thought all of that worked supremely well. So if you haven't watched it, even if you're not an Abbott Elementary fan, like I have never seen the show, if you're an Always Sunny fan, watch the crossover. It's very good. Creature Commandos, episode 7, a very funny monster. The finale, I made a video on it on social media. I liked it. A pretty good finale for season 1. It sets up a lot, like Frankenstein coming back, all of the new monsters and ghouls and things like that, like King Shark coming back. That's really fun. And like I said in my review on social media, it has a lot of twists and turns in the finale, and I think it just does one too many, where it's kind of fuzzy by the time we get to it. Like, oh, is it the princess that's the villain? Is it Cersei? And Cersei's not even in the finale, so it feels like they're twisting themselves into too much of a knot, but it was still really fun having that tension. Nina Mazursky, a great character. I'm super sad that she dies, but still a very fun finale that has me excited for also Peacemaker season 2, Superman, all of the good stuff that's about to come from DC, and Supergirl actually just started filming this week, so that's going to be really cool to see. Yeah, I think overall, I said in my review, I would give the series like 4.5 out of 5. I think it was just really good TV every week. It's kind of low stakes television, which is really great. It's not world ending stuff. It was just kind of one team that's fractured trying to kill this one princess, or are they trying to protect her? They aren't sure. It was just a lot of fun to watch, and I enjoyed it week to week, and I can't wait to go back and watch it, no doubt. I wrote here in my notes of things I'm going to watch that I'm going to mention. I'm going to work my way through all of the DCEU, so all the pre-James Gunn stuff, because there are things in there that I've never seen. Birds of Prey, Blue Beetle, both Shazam movies I've never seen, both Aquaman movies I've never seen. A lot of the DCEU stuff I just skipped out on, but before we get the birth of the DCU in live action, I want to see, officially, I want to see all the DCEU stuff, so that's going to be my mission. So maybe this weekend I'll watch Batman v Superman, or next week I will, then Wonder Woman, then the Suicide Squad, or whatever order it's in. Eventually get to James Gunn's Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, and then get right up to the Superman movie next summer, which I'm very excited for. So a lot to watch, but some other TV shows. We got the finale of Skeleton Crew. So I actually watched episode 7, titled We're Gonna Be in So Much Trouble, a very fun episode, and we finally saw Jude Law use a lightsaber, so he is a Jedi, which is very cool. And then we got the finale, episode 8, titled The Real Good Guys. I thought that was also really great as well, and just like, I thought it was maybe the best Star Wars thing we've had outside of Andor since season 1 of The Mandalorian. I talked to one of my friends who's a diehard Star Wars fan, like has every Lego Star Wars set currently in circulation pretty much. He hated The Acolyte. He loves everything Star Wars. He's very passionate, very knowledgeable, and he loved Skeleton Crew, which was very surprising. Like, I don't know, I thought maybe a kid's show, it's not going to be for everyone, but he loved it so much. He was watching it live at 9 every week. And it was just like fun to see that even OG Star Wars fans are really enjoying this. And I think that just shows how it was such a universally really good show that I think won over a lot of original fans, because I mentioned how it does feel a lot like the original trilogy in tone and comedy and the mood and also the effects. I think the effects were really good. I started watching it in 4K after like episode 3 and it looked amazing on Disney Plus. I loved how it looked. The kids in the show, these kid actors were amazing, and Jude Law fit like a glove in the Star Wars universe. He is so good in this franchise stuff. I think he's great in all of the Marvel stuff. Honestly, he's probably going to be in a DC movie at some point, but he's great, Jude Law. I think he was really good with the kids in the show, and they're all really funny. I honestly wouldn't mind a season 2. So if you haven't watched Skeleton Crew, I would totally recommend it to Star Wars fans. It's very rewarding. It's fun. It has a lot of fun stuff from other things in the universe, but it's not connected to anything really. And I think that's maybe where Star Wars needs to go, of just fully being away from the Skywalker saga. So yeah, lots I've watched this week. I promise, like I said last week, I am going to watch Squid Game season 2. I've seen zero online discussion about it, but I am going to check it out because I saw like 5 minutes of it when I was just walking through the room. I was like, oh, this actually looks very good. And I love season 1. So that might be next week's goal as well, is watching Squid Game season 2. But that's going to do it for what else I watched. And I think that's going to do it for episode 53, Wolfman. A less fun movie to talk about this week versus last week. A big letdown when you have the excitement of Better Man and so many fun movies being out. Now we're stuck in a studio film that just feels like a director-writer on cruise control. Just not very good. But for now, thank you all so much for listening. Please remember to rate and review the show on all of your streaming platforms. 5 stars. Give it a positive rating underneath, whether you are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Acast. Give it a positive review, write a positive review, and it might even be read on the show. If you are on YouTube, make sure you are liking this video, subscribing, and comment underneath. What did you think of Wolfman? Have you watched Squid Game season 2? What are you watching right now this January? What are you catching up on? So please rate and review the show 5 stars on all the streaming platforms. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment. You can also email the show, watcherofallthings@gmail.com. Get in touch with the show that way, or you can find us on the social media pages, whether it's Threads or Instagram. Those are both at Watcher of All Things. And then the TikTok page, which I'm sorry, Americans, you won't be able to access when this episode is out, actually, at watcher.of.all.things. That's at watcher.of.all.things. My personal letterbox account, KikiJ70, that's KIKIJ70. Follow me on there. Drop a comment underneath one of my reviews saying you found me through the podcast, and I will follow you back. Let's build our little community. Next week, as I said, big things. The Brutalist. It's out finally next weekend in Canada. 3 hours, 35 minutes with an intermission. I am so excited to talk about that, but that's going to do it for now. Thank you all so much for all the love, for listening, for showing support. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you in the next one.